At 7:42 a.m. on August 17, 1942, Captain Paul Gunn crouched under the wing of a Douglas A-20 Havoc at Eagle Farm Airfield near Brisbane, watching mechanics install 50 caliber machine guns in the bomber's nose where the bombardier had previously sat. Gunn was 43 years old, with 21 years in the Navy, and his wife and 4 children were trapped in a Japanese prison camp in Manila. The 5th Air Force was losing bombers faster than they could be replaced. In July alone, the 3rd Attack Group had lost 11 A-20s attempting to strike Japanese convoys from high altitude. Bombardiers could not hit moving ships. Flying lower exposed them to deck gunners who destroyed the planes. Captain Ed Liner had witnessed 3 crews burn in the Coral Sea the previous week. The Japanese were reinforcing New Guinea without restriction. Gunn had another plan. If bombers flew low and skipped bombs across the water like stones, they could hit ships at point-blank range. But surviving the approach first required overwhelming enemy guns with forward firepower. That meant converting bombers into attack aircraft. The A-20 Havoc had 4 30 caliber machine guns in the nose, but the rounds bounced off ship armor. Gunn needed 50 caliber guns. He mounted 4 in the nose where the bombardier had been, firing straight ahead at a combined rate of 1,700 rounds per minute. General George Kenney, the new 5th Air Force commander, gave Gunn 1 week to prove the concept. Gunn used 50 caliber guns from destroyed P-39 and P-40 fighters. The pilots were dead, but the guns were usable. He installed the guns on a steel frame inside the nose. Each weighed 64 pounds, plus 200 pounds of ammunition, which shifted the aircraft's center of gravity forward. The first test flight nearly killed the pilot. The A-20 struggled to climb and threatened to nose over. Gunn spent 2 days rebalancing the plane, moving equipment aft and adjusting the tail trim. The second test pilot reported the plane flew like it was angry but confirmed it could fly. On September 12, 16 modified A-20s attacked the Japanese airfield at Buna. Flying at treetop level, guns firing, they destroyed 14 Japanese aircraft on the ground and suppressed all anti-aircraft positions. Not a single A-20 was lost. Kenney wanted more, but the A-20 had limitations. Its range was too short to reach Japanese bases across the Owen Stanley Mountains, and its bomb load was too light. Gunn needed a larger platform, the B-25 Mitchell, which had longer range, heavier payload, and more space for guns. In December, he removed the bombardier and nose guns from a B-25C, installed 4 50 caliber guns in the nose, for more in external cheek mounts, and rotated the top turret forward, giving 10 forward-firing guns. He then added 2 more on each side, totaling 14 guns and 215 pounds of fire per second. Ground crews called it Papy's Folly. Gunn flew the prototype to Charters Towers to demonstrate it to the 3rd Attack Group. The plane was nose-heavy and difficult on takeoff, requiring full back pressure on the stick, but once airborne, it was highly effective. Kenney immediately ordered 12 more conversions. The 81st Air Depot Group in Townsville worked long hours to modify every available B-25. By February 1943, 30 strafers were ready for combat. Kenney sent the blueprints to Wright Field in Ohio, where Army Air Force engineers studied the modifications for 3 days before declaring them impractical. They claimed the planes would be unbalanced, too heavy, and unsafe to fly, recommending all be grounded. Kenney was in Washington when the message arrived. He walked into General Arnold's office, where engineers were ready to explain why the gunship was impossible. Kenney told them 12 of the impossible planes had just played a key role in destroying a Japanese convoy in the Bismarck Sea, and 60 more were already being modified in Australia. Arnold quickly dismissed the engineers. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea began with intelligence intercepts on February 28, 1943. Allied codebreakers in Melbourne decrypted Japanese naval messages. A convoy was leaving Rabaul, consisting of 8 transport ships, 8 destroyer escorts, and nearly 7,000 troops heading for La on New Guinea's north coast. General Kenny had 72 hours to intercept them. The convoy route crossed 400 miles of open water in the Bismarck Sea between New Britain and New Guinea. Japanese commanders assumed poor weather would provide cover. March was monsoon season, with low clouds, heavy rain, and poor visibility, conditions that prevented Allied bombers from striking what they could not see. The Japanese were correct about the weather. They misjudged the bombers. On March 2, reconnaissance planes spotted the convoy moving south through the Vita Strait. B-17 flying fortresses attacked from 15,000 feet through gaps in the clouds. They dropped 137 bombs and reported multiple hits. After the battle, analysis revealed that nothing had been sunk. High-altitude bombing against moving ships proved ineffective. The Japanese convoy continued its course. That night, the ships split up. The transports hugged the New Guinea coast while the destroyers formed a protective screen. Japanese commanders believed they would reach Lelei by dawn on March 4 and unload troops under fighter cover, confident that the war in New Guinea would shift in their favor. They did not anticipate what awaited them at first light. Captain Ed Laner briefed the 92nd Bomb Squadron at Port Moresby on the evening of March 2. The strike force included 12 B-25 strafers, 30 modified A-20 Havocs, Royal Australian Air Force bow fighters for top cover, and P-38 Lightnings to engage Japanese Zeros. The strafers were to attack at masthead height, roughly 50 feet above the water, firing point blank. The plan was straightforward: overwhelm the deck guns with concentrated fire, skip bomb the ships while they were stunned, and withdraw before the Zeros could respond. Laner had flown one practice mission using this tactic. When his navigator asked what would happen if a strafer came under fire during the approach, Laner replied that they would find out the next day. The briefing ended at 2,200 hours. Sleep was scarce. At 6:30 on March 3, the strike force assembled over Cape Ward Hunt. A total of 137 aircraft took part. The B-17s attacked first from altitude to draw defensive fire upward, followed by the low-flying strafers. The Japanese convoy was 70 miles northwest of Leh when the B-17s arrived. The heavy bombers struck through scattered clouds while the transports fired every available gun. Black puffs of flak filled the sky. One B-17 suffered flak damage and turned back, but the rest continued their assault. Then the strafers arrived. Laner led the B-25s in from the southeast at wave-top height. Each aircraft carried 14 forward-firing guns, totaling 168 across 12 planes. They approached in line abreast, creating a 300-yard wide wall of fire. The Japanese crew aboard the transport Kyoku Maru spotted them at 2 miles. The captain ordered a hard turn to starboard, but it was too late. The B-25s opened fire at 800 yards. 50 caliber rounds tore across the water like a chainsaw, hitting the superstructure, shredding the bridge, and killing anti-aircraft crews before they could operate their guns. 3 B-25s dropped bombs from 100 yards. The first skipped off the water, struck the hull below the waterline, and detonated in the engine room. The second hit midship. The third missed. Kyoku Maru was dead in the water within 30 seconds, burning and listing to port. The ship sank entirely in 40 minutes. The next transport, Tio Maru, tried to escape at full speed, 15 knots, while the B-25s approached at 240 knots. 4 strafers bracketed the ship, converging their fire on the deck. Anti-aircraft crews were killed at their stations, bridge windows shattered, and the executive officer was hit 3 times in the chest. The captain lasted only 10 more seconds before a burst cut him down. The strafers dropped 8 bombs, 5 of which hit. The ship broke in half, trapping Japanese soldiers below deck. Most never reached the surface. The transport sank in 6 minutes. Survivors jumped into the Bismarck Sea wearing full combat gear, but their packs dragged them under. Australian bow fighters strafed the decks of the destroyer Shikami as it attempted to protect the transports. The destroyer's anti-aircraft fire struck one Australian bow fighter, but the pilot pressed on. His forward guns swept the deck from bow to stern, eliminating the Japanese gun crews. By the time the B-25 strafers arrived, Shikami had no defenses left. 3 strafers attacked from different angles. The destroyer attempted to turn into the attack but was too slow. Bombs struck the port side, starboard, and midship. The vessel did not sink immediately, but it was effectively destroyed, dead in the water, with fires spreading. The crew abandoned ship 2 hours later. By 0900 hours on March 3, the Japanese convoy was scattered across 40 square miles of ocean. 5 transports were sinking or burning, and 2 destroyers were crippled. The remaining ships tried to escape but failed. The strafers returned at 1400 hours with fresh bombs and full ammunition. The Japanese had no fighter cover because the Zeros had landed at Lely to refuel and were on the ground during the second wave. The transport Io Maru took 12 bomb hits. Its magazine exploded, a blast visible from Port Moresby 130 miles away. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained. No wreckage, no survivors. 1,800 Japanese soldiers were gone in seconds. Captain Ed Lehner in a B-25 strafed the transport Io Maru at low altitude. His co-pilot counted 14 separate fires across the deck. Japanese soldiers jumped overboard, and anti-aircraft guns remained silent. Lehner's bombardier released 2 bombs at point-blank range, both hitting the target. The transport settled by the stern and capsized. Modified A-20 Havocs hunted the crippled destroyers. The destroyer Asashio attempted to rescue survivors, but 3 A-20s attacked from multiple directions. Focused on rescue operations, the crew did not see the strafers until the guns opened fire. Asashio took bomb hits on the forward deck and bridge, burned through the night, and sank at dawn on March 4. By the evening of March 3, the Japanese convoy was destroyed. 8 transports and 4 destroyers were sunk. Of nearly 7,000 troops departing Rabaul, fewer than 1,200 reached Leh, 2,700 were rescued and returned to Rabaul, and the rest died in the Bismarck Sea. Allied losses included 4 aircraft, 1 B-17, 3 P-38s, and 13 aircrew killed. General MacArthur described the battle as one of the most complete and annihilating of all time. The Japanese never again attempted to reinforce New Guinea by convoy. The war in the Southwest Pacific had shifted, largely due to Paul Gunn's innovative gunship. Back in Australia, engineers were preparing a formal report stating that the B-25 modifications could not work. On March 5, Kenny sent a message to General Hap Arnold in Washington. The subject read, "Commerce Destroyer Modifications Approved for Production." The message contained a single paragraph: 12 B-25 strafers had just destroyed an entire Japanese convoy. Request immediate factory integration of the forward gun package into all B-25 production aircraft. Arnold contacted North American Aviation President J.H. Dutch Kindleberger that afternoon. Kindleberger said engineers needed to see the modifications. Arnold sent the designer himself. Paul Gunn flew to California despite not wanting to leave Australia. His wife and 4 children were still in Santo Tomas internment camp in Manila, held by the Japanese since January 1942. For 14 months, Gunn flew missions hoping to move closer to liberating the Philippines. Going to California was a step in the wrong direction, but Kenny ordered it. The 5th Air Force needed hundreds of factory-built strafers, and Gunn was the only man who could show North American aviation how to do it correctly. General Arnold promised he would return to the Pacific within 6 weeks. Gunn arrived at the North American Aviation Plant in Long Beach, California on March 27, 1943. The facility covered 140 acres and employed 20,000 workers on 3 shifts. The assembly line produced 1 B-25 every 4 hours. Engineers studied Gunn's hand-drawn blueprints and asked about stress calculations. Gunn had none. They asked about wind tunnel testing. Gunn had tested the aircraft in flight. They asked about center of gravity adjustments. Gunn had relocated the radio equipment aft to compensate. One engineer warned that the modifications could buckle the fuselage skin around the cheek gun mounts. Gunn explained the muzzle blast would do so and demonstrated welded blast tubes extending beyond the propeller arc, solving the problem. Factory engineers spent 2 weeks reverse engineering the field modifications into production drawings. They strengthened the nose structure, redesigned gun mounts, reinforced fuselage skin with heavier gauge aluminum, and calculated the exact center of gravity shift to adjust tail trim. The first factory-built B-25G Strafer rolled off the line on May 10, 1943, with 4 50 caliber guns in the nose and a 75 mm M4 cannon capable of sinking a destroyer below the waterline. Gunn test flew the prototype. The 75 mm cannon recoiled 4 feet and shook the aircraft. The navigator had to reload manually, 1 round every 30 seconds. Gunn confirmed it would work against ships, if not faster targets. North American Aviation built 400 B-25G Strafers before improving the design. The B-25H added 4 more 50 caliber guns in the cheek packs for a total of 14 forward-firing guns, retained the 75 mm cannon, and improved the recoil system for faster reloading, 1 round every 20 seconds. The B-25J removed the 75 mm cannon, added 4 more 50 caliber guns, totaling 18 forward-firing guns, making it the most heavily armed production bomber in history. North American built 4,900 B-25JS, delivering the first to the Pacific in October 1943. Gunn returned to Australia in May, exactly 6 weeks after leaving, while his family remained in Manila. The Strafers continued operations. In April 1943, B-25s destroyed 16 Japanese barges carrying troops and supplies near Finschhafen. In May, they sank 12 cargo ships at Wewak Harbor. In June, the Allies struck the oil facilities at Balikpapan on Borneo. The Japanese responded by stopping daytime shipping of supplies, but it made little difference. The B-25 Strafers adapted to attack at night using radar. They mastered skip bombing from 50 feet in complete darkness and coordinated with PT boats, which illuminated targets with searchlights at the last moment. The Japanese called the modified B-25s the Black Death, and the name was accurate. On November 2, 1943, Major Ben Fridge led 4 squadrons of Strafers into Rabaul Harbor, totaling 137 Allied aircraft, including 59 B-25s. The harbor contained 38 Japanese vessels, including cruisers, destroyers, tankers, cargo ships, and minesweepers. The Strafers approached at masthead height through phosphorus smoke that blinded anti-aircraft gunners. They attacked from multiple directions at the same time, overwhelming the defenders. In 15 minutes, 30 ships were hit, 5 were sunk outright, 12 were damaged beyond repair, and the remainder limped away. Rabaul Harbor was effectively destroyed as a forward supply base. Gunn participated in that mission. At 44 years old, he did not have to fly combat missions as a special projects officer on headquarters staff, but his family remained in Manila. Each mission brought him closer to them. Intelligence from the Santo Tomas internment camp worsened, with reduced food rations, medicine shortages, and prisoners dying from disease and malnutrition. The Japanese camp commander had told the Red Cross that all prisoners would be executed if Allied forces approached Manila. Gunn told Kenny he wanted to lead the first mission over Manila during the liberation, and Kenny promised he would. The B-25 Strafers continued to evolve through 1944. Some were equipped with 8 5-inch high-velocity rockets under the wings. Others carried napalm tanks or parafrag bombs, small fragmentation bombs with parachutes that allowed drops from minimal altitude without damaging the aircraft. The most effective tactic became the combined strike. High-flying B-24 Liberators bombed from 20,000 feet to draw the defenders' attention upward, allowing the low-flying Strafers to strike before the gunners could react. In the first 8 months of 1944, 5th Air Force strafers destroyed 947 Japanese aircraft on the ground, sank 273 ships, and killed an estimated 38,000 soldiers. The modified B-25s had become the decisive weapon in the Southwest Pacific campaign. Gun continued to innovate, adding extra fuel tanks for extended range, improving gun cooling systems, and developing ammunition loading techniques that increased the rate of fire. Some Pacific B-25s carried modifications that existed nowhere else, invented by Gun the night before a mission. Other commanders requested similar aircraft, and Kenny sent blueprints. In the Mediterranean, B-25s were modified for anti-shipping missions against German convoys supplying North Africa, and in the China-Burma-India theater, B-25s were adapted to strike Japanese supply lines along the Burma Road. Gun's innovations in Brisbane spread across every combat zone. On October 20, 1944, American forces landed at Leyte in the Philippines. The liberation of Manila was 3 months away. Gun's family had been in captivity for nearly 3 years, and he was flying multiple missions each day. He told his crew chief that he would not stop until his family was free. Then, on November 27, 1944, Japanese bombers struck Tacloban airfield at 0330 hours. 56 aircraft, Mitsubishi G-4M Betty bombers escorted by Zeros, approached low from the north. Radar operators detected them too late. Gun was in the operations tent reviewing mission plans when the first bombs hit. The tent was only 200 yards from the main runway. The blast threw him to the ground and shrapnel tore through the canvas. A fragment struck his left leg, another his shoulder. The medical officer found him trying to stand, blood soaking his flight suit. Gun insisted he needed to check on his aircraft. The doctor said he required surgery. Gun made it 30 feet before collapsing. He was evacuated to the hospital at Leyte. The leg wound was severe. Shrapnel had severed an artery. Surgeons said he would not fly again for at least 6 months, probably longer. The injuries qualified him for medical retirement. At 45 years old and 26 years of service in both the Navy and Army, he had earned the right to go home. Gun told the surgeon he was not going anywhere until his family was safe. The Battle of Manila began on February 3, 1945. American forces fought house to house through the city. The Japanese had declared Manila a fortress, defending every street. Fighting was brutal, block by block. Santo Tomas internment camp was liberated that day. 3,700 Allied prisoners were freed. Gun's wife Polly weighed 89 pounds. His daughter Julia weighed 63. They had survived on rice and vegetable soup once a day for a year. His son Nathaniel had malaria. His youngest daughter suffered from dysentery. They were alive. On February 4, Gun flew to Manila against medical orders. His leg was still bandaged, and he used a cane. The doctor had cleared him for light duty only, no combat. He went to Santo Tomas and found his family in the Army's makeshift hospital. Polly did not recognize him at first. He had lost 40 pounds since she last saw him in April 1942. 3 years of captivity had turned him completely gray. She thought he was a doctor, until he spoke her name. Then she knew. The official Army report states that Colonel Paul Gun reunited with his family on February 4, 1945, at Santo Tomas. The reunion lasted 4 hours. Gun then returned to Leyte. His medical leave was not over, but the war was not finished. The modified B-25s continued flying, piloted by others using Gun's innovations. By the end of the war, North American aviation had built 9,600 B-25 Mitchell bombers. Nearly 5,000 were Strafer variants with forward gun packages based on Gun's original design. These aircraft sank over 800 Japanese ships, destroyed more than 2,000 aircraft on the ground, and killed an estimated 85,000 soldiers. The commerce destroyer concept that engineers had called impossible became the most effective anti-shipping weapon in the theater. Gunn never flew combat again. The leg wound ended his operational career. The Army retired him as a full colonel on June 30, 1948, at age 48, due to medical disability. Gunn returned to the Philippines and rebuilt Philippine Airlines, which he had started before the war. Operations resumed in 1946 with 3 surplus C-47 transport aircraft. He flew routes between Manila, Cebu, Davao, and other cities. The airline he had built with 5 Beechcraft planes before the war now operated across the archipelago. In 1947, the Philippine government awarded him the Distinguished Service Star. President Manuel Roxas presented it personally. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism and exceptional service to the Republic of the Philippines during the Liberation Campaign." Gunn's aircraft modifications had directly contributed to the defeat of Japanese forces and the freedom of the Filipino people. The United States military had already honored him with the Distinguished Flying Cross with Oak Leaf Cluster, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, Air Medal, and 9 Purple Hearts. A Distinguished Service Cross was recommended but never approved, as some officers considered his contributions technical rather than tactical. They were mistaken. General Kenny wrote in his memoir, "Paul Gunn was the most valuable man in the 5th Air Force. His mechanical genius and combat innovations changed the course of the war in the Southwest Pacific." Without his strafer modifications, the Battle of the Bismarck Sea would have been a Japanese victory. Without Bismarck Sea, New Guinea would have been lost. Without New Guinea, the road to the Philippines would have been impossible. MacArthur agreed and in a classified letter to the War Department dated July 1945 recommended Gunn for promotion to Brigadier General. The recommendation was denied due to Army-Air Force force reductions. Gunn remained a colonel. He never complained. His family was free, the Philippines liberated, and the Japanese defeated. That was enough. Philippine Airlines expanded through the late 1940s and early 1950s. Gunn acquired DC-3s, then DC-4s, and later Convair 340s. The airline established routes to Hong Kong, Bangkok, and Singapore. By 1956, PAL was flying to San Francisco. Gunn flew constantly, Manila to Cebu, Cebu to Davao, Davao to Hong Kong. He could not stop. The war had taught him that movement meant survival and standing still meant death. Some pilots said Gunn was still fighting, still outrunning something, perhaps the memory of Santo Tomas or the faces of crews who had flown his modified aircraft and never returned. On October 10, 1957, Gunn chartered a Beechcraft Model 18 twin-engine plane for a routine flight from Manila to Baguio, 140 miles north. The forecast indicated scattered thunderstorms over the Cordillera Mountains but nothing severe. He filed his flight plan at 0800 hours, scheduled to depart at 0930, arriving at 1100 hours. The tower cleared him for takeoff at 0928. Weather deteriorated rapidly. By 10:30, the mountains were covered in heavy rain, low visibility, and turbulence. The aircraft's radio went silent at 10:47. Search and rescue teams found the wreckage 3 days later on a mountainside near Baguio. The plane had flown into a storm cell, and efforts to climb above it failed. Winds drove the aircraft into the ridge. The impact killed everyone instantly. Paul Irvin Gunn died on October 11, 1957. He was 57 years old, turning 58 in 1 week. The Philippine government gave him a state funeral. 6,000 people attended, including American veterans, Philippine Airlines employees, and former prisoners from Santo Tomas. General Kenny sent a wreath from the United States. The Manila Times published Gunn's obituary on October 12. The headline read, "War Hero Dies in Plane Crash." The article mentioned his Distinguished Flying Cross, his role in the Battle of the Bismarck Sea, and his liberation missions over the Philippines, but it could not fully capture the scope of his achievements. The numbers told part of the story. 5,000 B-25 strafers built with his modifications, 800 Japanese ships sunk, 2,000 aircraft destroyed on the ground, and 85,000 enemy soldiers killed. These were the official statistics, but the real impact went further. Gun's strafer concept changed the way air forces viewed bombers. Before Gun, bombers dropped ordnance from altitude. After Gun, bombers became multi-role weapons capable of strafing, skip bombing, and close air support. The AC-130 gunship used in Vietnam was a direct descendant of Gun's B-25 modifications. So was the A-10 Warthog, along with every modern attack aircraft with forward-firing guns. North American Aviation hired Gun as a consulting engineer in 1948. He worked on the B-45 Tornado jet bomber, advised on gun mounting systems, and designed forward-firing armament packages. The company paid him well, but he donated most of the money to veteran organizations. His son Nathaniel joined the Air Force, flew B-52s in Vietnam, retired as a colonel, and wrote a book about his father titled Papi Gun, published in 1994 and selling 12,000 copies. Most people had never heard of Paul Gunn. The National Museum of the Pacific War in Fredericksburg, Texas displays one of Gunn's original gun mounting drawings. The paper is yellowed, the measurements handwritten in pencil. The sketch shows 450 caliber guns mounted inside an A-20 nose compartment. No stress calculations, no computer modeling, just the drawing that destroyed 8,000 Japanese soldiers in the Bismarck Sea. In 2008, the Air Force Association inducted Gunn into the Air Force Enlisted Heritage Hall. The citation noted his innovations, combat record, and influence on modern attack aviation. The ceremony was held in Washington, attended by 3 of his grandchildren. Philippine Airlines still operates today. The airline flies to 42 destinations across Asia, Australia, and North America. Its headquarters in Manila has a portrait of Gunn in the main lobby, though most employees do not know who he is. If this story moved you the way it moved us, hit the like button. Each like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We are rescuing forgotten stories every day, stories about mechanics and innovators who saved thousands of lives through field modifications and gun packages. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from. Are you in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, the Philippines? Our community spans the globe. You are not just a viewer, you are helping keep these memories alive. Share your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you are here. Thank you for watching and helping make sure Papi Gun does not fade into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you are helping make that happen.